I was standing in the boardroom when my father said the words that would change everything between us. "You're too weak for this business," he announced, his voice carrying across the room filled with executives and family members. "You always have been." The room went silent. I stood there, my presentation notes still in my hand, staring at him. This wasn't a private conversation. This was a public execution. He'd called a full board meeting, gathered everyone who mattered, and waited until I was mid-sentence about quarterly projections before interrupting. "Effective immediately, I'm reassigning your responsibilities," he continued, not looking at me. "This company needs strength, not sentiment." My uncle shifted uncomfortably in his seat. My cousin avoided my eyes. The CFO studied his papers like they were suddenly fascinating. Nobody spoke. Nobody defended me. I'd spent 5 years building the operations division from nothing. 5 years of late nights, successful deals, growth that exceeded every target. And he was erasing it all in 30 seconds. The worst part was his face. He wasn't angry. He was satisfied. This humiliation was planned. Before I could respond, my father gestured to someone at the door. "Come in, Marcus." A man I'd never met walked into the boardroom confidently. Mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Marcus will be taking over your division," my father announced. "He has the experience and the temperament we need moving forward." I was still standing there. They were replacing me while I was in the room. Marcus took the seat that had been mine for 5 years. He opened a folder like this was completely normal, like I was already gone. "Thank you all for your time," my father said, dismissing the meeting. "Except you," he added, finally looking at me. "We need to talk." The others filed out quickly, relieved to escape the awkwardness. Marcus stayed, settling into my chair. I stood there, my presentation notes crumpling in my fist, waiting. When the room was nearly empty, I overheard my father speaking to Marcus in a low voice. "She's too emotional for this work. Always has been." I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. I stayed frozen in place as my father and Marcus continued their conversation, thinking I was out of earshot. "The problem with her approach," my father said, his voice carrying just enough, "is she thinks compassion has a place in business. She got that from her mother. My mother had died 3 years ago. He was using her memory to justify this. What we need is someone ruthless," he continued. "Someone who makes hard decisions without getting emotional about the consequences." Marcus nodded like he understood perfectly. I felt something inside me shift, not break. I'd been broken by him before. This was different. This was hardening, like metal heated and hammered until it became something stronger. For years, I'd tried to earn his respect by being better, working harder, proving myself. I thought the problem was me, that if I just pushed a little more, sacrificed a little more, he'd finally see my value. I was wrong. The problem was never me. It was him, and I was done trying to fix something that didn't want to be fixed. At home that evening, the silence was deafening. My aunt was visiting, sitting in the living room when I arrived. She looked up when I walked in, then quickly looked away. No questions, no concern, just avoidance. My younger brother was there too, scrolling on his phone. "Heard about the meeting," he said without looking up. "That's rough." That was it. No outrage on my behalf, no support. My father came home an hour later. He walked past me to his office without a word, like I was furniture. Over dinner, prepared by the housekeeper because no one in this family actually cooked, everyone ate in silence. I tried to catch my aunt's eye. Was wrong. We never delayed audits. They were scheduled a year in advance. "Do you know why?" I asked. She shook her head. "But people are nervous." The CFO looked stressed, like really stressed. I thanked her and left. The pieces were forming a picture, a bad one. 2 weeks after I was removed, the news broke. Henderson Industries, our largest client, had pulled their contract. The official statement cited strategic differences and misaligned values. I knew the truth. Marcus had pushed too hard, and Henderson had walked. The company's stock dropped 4% in a day. Not catastrophic, but visible. Concerning. My father issued a statement brushing it off. "We're diversifying our client base. This creates opportunities for growth." I read it and knew he was lying. Henderson represented 20% of our annual revenue. You don't lose that without consequences. I called another contact, someone in finance. "Off the record," I said. "How bad is it really?" He sighed. bad. We're scrambling. Your father is telling everyone it's fine, but we're looking at a significant shortfall this quarter." And Marcus? Out of his depth, he admitted. "He talks a good game, but he doesn't understand our systems. He's making decisions without knowing the foundations." I felt no satisfaction, just a growing certainty that this was only the beginning. The empire my father built was starting to crack, and he couldn't see it. Against my better judgment, I called my father. He answered on the third ring. "What do you want?" No greeting, no pretense. "I heard about Henderson," I said. "I think there are deeper problems you should—" "Don't," he interrupted sharply. "Don't pretend you know what you're talking about. I worked on the Henderson account for 3 years. I know." "You're not part of this company anymore," he cut in. "And honestly, I'm starting to think you're enjoying watching us struggle." The accusation hit like a slap. "You think I'm sabotaging you? I think you're bitter," he said coldly. "And I think you need to stay out of company business, permanently." "I'm trying to help. You're trying to prove you were right, that I was wrong to remove you. But I wasn't. You're proving exactly why I made that decision. Too emotional, too invested in being right instead of being practical." He paused. "Do not call me about company business again. If I find out you've been talking to my employees, I'll consider it corporate espionage." He hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, shaking. Not from hurt, from anger. Over the next month, the collapse accelerated. 2 suppliers demanded payment upfront, citing concerns about the company's financial stability. Industry blogs started running articles about trouble at Harrison Industries. Staff began leaving. Not mass exodus, but a steady trickle of experienced people who saw the warning signs. My former colleague texted me, "3 senior managers quit this week. Your father is telling everyone they weren't committed, but I heard they saw the books and panicked." The stock dropped another 6%. Trade publications speculated about leadership problems. And then the legal threat emerged. A former client was threatening to sue over a botched deal. Marcus had apparently promised delivery timelines that were physically impossible and then blamed the client when things fell apart. The lawsuit was for breach of contract and reputational damage. Millions of dollars. I read about it online like everyone else, no longer an insider. The comment section was brutal. "Harrison used to be reliable. What happened?" "New leadership is destroying decades of goodwill." I knew what had happened. My father had chosen pride over competence, and now it was catching up. Then my name started appearing in internal conversations. I heard about it through people who still trusted me. My father was quietly blaming my past decisions for current problems. "The systems she put in place were inefficient," he told the board. "We're still cleaning up her mistakes." Projects I'd successfully completed were being reframed as problematic. Contracts I'd negotiated were suddenly poorly structured. He was making me a scapegoat for Marcus's failures. I saved every message, every email forward, every piece of evidence that came my way, not for revenge, for protection, because I knew how this worked. When things got bad enough, they'd try to make it my fault officially. I wasn't going to let that happen. I contacted a lawyer. "I need documentation," I explained. "Proof of my work, my contributions, my decisions, in case they try to blame me for this collapse." She understood immediately. Smart. Companies do this all the time. Blame the person who's not there to defend themselves. We started building my defense. Every successful project, every bit of client review, every decision backed by data. It was exhausting, but necessary. While my father's company spiraled, I started consulting independently. Small projects at first, always anonymous, working through a firm that kept my identity private. I analyzed business models, identified inefficiencies, provided strategic recommendations. My instincts, the ones my father called too cautious, proved deadly accurate. A struggling tech startup followed my advice and turned profitable within 6 months. A manufacturing company avoided a merger that would have destroyed them. A retail chain restructured based on my recommendations and saw sales increase 30%. I didn't advertise, didn't build a public brand, just worked, proved myself, and let results speak. Word spread in the consulting world. There's someone anonymous doing incredible work. Whoever they are, they're never wrong. My rates went up, my client list grew, and I realized something. I wasn't weak, I never had been. I just didn't measure strength the way my father did. His definition required cruelty, dominance, visible power. Mine required patience, accuracy, sustainable growth. Both were strength, but only one lasted. 6 months after my removal, something ironic happened. The consulting firm I worked through got a new client request. Harrison Industries. They needed strategic analysis of their operations division, the division I'd built and been removed from. I almost declined, but curiosity won. Don't share my identity, I told my contact at the firm. Anonymous only. Always, she confirmed. I took the project. I analyzed everything. Marcus's decisions, the structural changes, the financial trajectory. It was worse than I'd thought. The report I delivered was thorough and brutal. It identified exactly where things had gone wrong and how to fix them. 3 days later, my father held a company meeting. Someone sent me a recording. I've reviewed the consultant's report, he said. This is the kind of strong, clear analysis we need. No emotional hedging, just facts and solutions. He was praising my work, calling it strong. The exact opposite of everything he'd said about me. I sat in my apartment listening to him commend the analysis, completely unaware it came from the daughter he'd called too weak. The irony was beautiful and painful. 2 months later, everything reached a breaking point. The lawsuit settled but cost the company millions. 2 more major clients left. The delayed audit finally happened and revealed exactly what I'd suspected. Inflated projections, hidden costs, financial mismanagement. The board demanded answers. My father blamed Marcus, but the damage was done. The company's reputation was in free fall. Debt was mounting, experienced staff had fled. What remained was a skeleton crew trying to hold together an empire that was crumbling. Industry analysts openly speculated about bankruptcy. Investors were panicking. The stock had lost 40% of its value. Everything my father had built over 30 years was collapsing in less than 1. I watched it unfold with complicated feelings. I'd tried to warn him. He'd chosen pride, but this wasn't just his company. Hundreds of people worked there, good people who didn't deserve to lose their jobs because of his ego. Then on a Tuesday evening, my phone rang, his number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Hello? I need to talk to you, he said. His voice was different, smaller, uncertain. I'd never heard him sound like that. About what? I asked carefully. There was a long pause. Then, I need your help. I met him at a coffee shop the next morning, neutral ground. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back corner. He looked older, tired. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down. No small talk, no pretense. The company is in trouble, he continued. Real trouble. The board is talking about bringing in outside management. Some are suggesting we sell. I said nothing. I made mistakes, he admitted, the words clearly difficult. Marcus was wrong. The restructuring was wrong. He stopped. I was wrong about you. I waited. I need someone who understands the company, who built the systems, who knows the clients. He looked at me directly. I need you to come back. As what? I asked. Whatever you need to be, he said. Whatever authority you need. I'll make it happen. It was everything I might have wanted to hear 8 months ago. Now it felt empty. Why should I asked. Because you're the only one who can save it, he said simply. The honesty was almost shocking. I considered his request for a long moment. If I do this, I said carefully, it's on my terms, not yours. He nodded. I understand. Full authority over operations. No interference from you. No second-guessing my decisions. You step back completely. He hesitated. This was hard for him, letting go of control. And, I continued, we do this temporarily. I stabilize the company, fix what's broken, and then I leave. This isn't permanent. You'd walk away? He asked, surprised. I'm not coming back to work for you, I said clearly. I'm coming back to save what hundreds of other people built, the employees who don't deserve to lose everything because of your pride. He flinched at that. Those are my conditions, I finished. Take them or don't. He sat in silence. I could see him struggling. This meant admitting I was right, that he needed me, that I was stronger than he'd ever given me credit for. Okay, he finally said, your terms. I need it in writing, I added. Board approval, official authority, otherwise this doesn't work. I'll arrange it, he promised. Board meeting tomorrow, you'll have everything you need. I stood to leave. One more thing, I said. If you undermine me even once, I walk immediately. Understand? He nodded. I understand. Walking back into Harrison Industries felt surreal. People stared, whispered. I'd been gone 8 months, and in that time, I'd become a ghost story. The daughter who was exiled, the executive who vanished. Now I was back, not as my father's child, but as the last hope. The board had approved everything. Full operational authority, direct reporting to the board, not to my father. He'd actually stepped aside. The first thing I did was call a meeting with department heads. 20 people gathered in the main conference room. Some looked hopeful, others skeptical. Marcus was there too, his confidence from months ago completely gone. "I'm not here to make friends," I started. "I'm here to save this company. That means hard decisions, uncomfortable truths, changes that some of you won't like." I pulled up a presentation. "I've spent the last week analyzing everything. The problems are systemic, but they're fixable. Here's how." For 2 hours, I walked them through it. What went wrong, why it went wrong, how we'd fix it. I didn't blame Marcus directly, didn't need to. The analysis made it obvious. When I finished, the room was silent. Finally, the CFO spoke. "This is the clearest path forward anyone's presented." "When do we start?" someone else asked. "Now," I said. As I dug deeper, I discovered decisions my father had made that directly caused the collapse. He'd ignored market research because it contradicted what he wanted to believe. He'd overextended into sectors we didn't understand because a competitor was doing it. He'd cut investments in employee development to boost short-term profits. Every warning sign had been there. Multiple people had raised concerns. He'd dismissed them all. There was an email chain I found where the former CFO had explicitly warned about the Henderson contract renegotiation. "This approach will damage the relationship. Henderson values loyalty over margin." My father's response: "They'll accept it or we'll find someone who will." Henderson had walked 3 weeks later. Another email showed engineering warning that the timelines Marcus promised were impossible. "We need at least 6 more weeks for proper testing." Marcus's response, with my father's approval: "Tell the client we can do it. We'll figure it out." They hadn't figured it out. The botched delivery led to the lawsuit. Pattern after pattern of pride overruling expertise. The truth was damning, and it had to come out if we were going to fix this. I implemented changes immediately. Cut unprofitable projects, restructured departments, brought back some of the employees who'd left, offering them real authority. The first week was brutal. 16-hour days, difficult conversations, people angry about changes, but results started showing. A client we'd lost agreed to a meeting after I personally called them. 2 suppliers accepted new payment terms after I demonstrated we were serious about reform. The bleeding slowed, then stopped. Within a month, we'd stabilized. Not thriving yet, but no longer in free fall. The board noticed. "The turnaround is remarkable," one board member said in a meeting. "We went from discussing bankruptcy to discussing growth." My father sat silently through these meetings, watching me do what he couldn't. It must have been difficult for him, but he kept his promise. No interference. 2 months in, we landed a major new contract. The client specifically said they were coming back because of the leadership change. "We heard she's running things now. That changes everything." The company wasn't just surviving, it was rebuilding its reputation. Under my leadership, all eyes turned to my father. He had nothing to say. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for a Wednesday. The room was packed. Board members, executives, key investors. My father sat in his usual chair, but he wasn't leading this meeting. I was. I presented the turnaround numbers: revenue stabilization, client retention improvement, staff morale recovery. The improvements were undeniable. Then I did something risky. "I want to address why we got here," I said. The room went tense. This wasn't bad luck. It wasn't market conditions. It was specific decisions made by leadership that ignored expert advice. I pulled up the emails. The warnings, the dismissals. I didn't have to say my father's name. Everyone knew. "Going forward," I continued, "this company succeeds by listening to expertise over ego, by valuing sustainable growth over pride, by admitting when we're wrong and correcting course quickly." A board member spoke up. "Are you saying the previous leadership model was the problem?" "Yes," I said simply. "That's exactly what I'm saying." My father sat frozen. Another board member: "What do you recommend?" "New governance structure, distributed authority, checks and balances. One person should never have this much unchecked control again." They voted. It passed unanimously. My father didn't vote against it. He abstained. The power structure had shifted, permanently. 3 months after I returned, we held a company-wide meeting. 500 employees gathered in the main hall and via video conference. The CEO spoke first. A new CEO the board had hired, someone external with a strong track record. 3 months ago, we were on the edge of bankruptcy, he began. Today, we're profitable again. That didn't happen by accident. He gestured to me. It happened because someone had the courage to tell us the truth, to make hard decisions, to rebuild what was broken. The applause started. It built until the entire room was standing. My father was there, in the back. I saw him watching. The CEO continued. I've led turnarounds before. I've never seen one this fast or this complete. That takes exceptional leadership. More applause. Someone shouted, "She saved us!" Others joined in. It wasn't planned. Just genuine gratitude from people who'd been terrified of losing their jobs. I stood there, overwhelmed. All eyes eventually turned to my father. Someone from the crowd called out, "What do you think, Mr. Harrison?" He stood slowly, walked to the front. I didn't know what he'd say. "I think," he began, his voice carrying across the silent room, "that I was completely wrong." After the meeting, my father asked to talk privately. We went to his office. He closed the door and sat down heavily. "I owe you an apology," he said. "A real one." I waited. I spent years confusing cruelty with strength. I thought being hard, being unyielding, being ruthless. I thought that was what leadership required. He looked at me. "But watching you these past months, I realized I was wrong. About strength, about leadership, about you." "Why did you do it?" I asked. "Why humiliate me like that?" He was quiet for a long time. "Because you reminded me of your mother," he finally said. "Her compassion, her empathy. And when she died, I convinced myself those things were weaknesses that killed her." "She died of cancer," I said quietly. "I know," he said. But grief doesn't follow logic. I blamed softness for taking her, so I tried to eliminate it from everything. From the business, from myself, from you." He wiped his eyes. "I was trying to protect you by making you harder. Instead, I almost destroyed you, and I almost destroyed everything we built." "The company is stable now," I said, "but I'm still leaving. That was the agreement." He nodded. "I know, and I understand why." "Can I tell you what I learned?" I asked him. He nodded. "Real strength isn't about being the hardest or the loudest or the most ruthless. It's about knowing when to push and when to listen, when to be firm and when to be flexible, when to lead and when to step back." I thought about the past 3 months. It's about empathy, understanding what people need and why. It's about foresight, seeing problems before they become disasters. It's about restraint, not doing something just because you can. "Everything you called weakness," I continued, "was actually strength. You just couldn't see it, because it didn't look like your version." He listened without interrupting. "I was never too weak for this business," I said. "I was just strong in ways you didn't recognize, and that's on you, not me." He nodded slowly. "You're right. I needed you to see me," I said. "Not who you wanted me to be, not some harder version, just me." "I see you now," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. "But it's too late. I can't come back, not permanently." "Because you don't trust me?" he asked. "Because I don't need your approval anymore," I said honestly. "I proved to myself what I'm capable of. I don't need to prove it to you." The board offered me a permanent position, Chief Operating Officer, significant salary, equity stake, everything I might have wanted a year ago. I turned it down. "Why?" the CEO asked, genuinely confused. "You saved this company. You could lead it for decades." "Because I did what I came to do," I explained. "I stabilized it, fixed the problems, built sustainable systems. Now it needs to stand without me." I recommended my replacement, someone from inside who'd proven themselves during the crisis. The board approved. My last day was quiet, no big farewell party, just handshakes and genuine gratitude from people who'd kept their jobs because of the work I did. My father was there. We stood in the lobby, the place where I'd been escorted out 8 months earlier. "I watched you leave once because I was too proud to see your value," he said. "Now I'm watching you leave because you're too strong to need this place." It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. "Take care of yourself," I said. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't hatred either, just acceptance. I walked out the doors on my own terms this time. No security escort, no humiliation, just choice. 5 years later, my consulting firm had become one of the most respected in the industry. We specialized in turning around struggling companies. My success rate was exceptional. My methods were studied in business schools. I was invited to speak at conferences, write articles, advise major corporations. My name carried weight, real weight, built on my work, my instincts, my strength. Harrison Industries was stable but unremarkable now. It survived. It didn't innovate. When journalists wrote about it, they often mentioned the dramatic turnaround 5 years ago when the founder's daughter saved the company from collapse. My father was mentioned, but always in the context of what I'd fixed. His legacy became tied to his failure and my rescue. We spoke occasionally, brief calls, holidays sometimes. Our relationship would never be what it could have been, but it was honest now. At a recent industry event, someone introduced him as the founder of Harrison Industries. He corrected them. I'm the father of the woman who saved Harrison Industries. That's the more important part. He'd finally learned. Too late for us, but he'd learned. The story people told wasn't about the empire he built. It was about the empire I rebuilt when he couldn't. He called me weak. But when everything fell apart, I was the only one strong enough to hold it together. And that's the truth that no one could deny.